There's something happening to you right now that feels unsettling, maybe even frightening. You wake up each morning and reach for the things that used to bring you joy, only to find them sitting there like objects from someone else's life. The book you couldn't put down last month feels heavy in your hands. The friend you used to text constantly seems to speak a language you no longer understand. The goals you were chasing with such determination now feel like echoes from a distant shore. You might be wondering if something is broken inside you, if depression has crept in without warning, if you're losing yourself entirely. But what if I told you that this emptiness, this strange detachment from everything familiar, isn't a sign that you're falling apart? What if it's actually proof that you're being prepared for something entirely new? The truth is, you're not losing interest in everything because there's something wrong with you. You're losing interest because there's something right happening to you. Something so profound that your old self, the one who craved those familiar pleasures and pursuits, is quietly stepping aside to make room for who you're becoming. Think about how a snake sheds its skin. For days before the process begins, the snake becomes restless, loses its appetite, and its eyes turn milky. To an outside observer, the snake might appear sick or dying, but beneath that clouded surface, something miraculous is preparing to emerge. The old skin has served its purpose, but it can no longer contain what the snake is growing into. This is where you are right now, in that strange, uncomfortable space between who you were and who you're becoming. Your disinterest isn't random, it's intelligent. Your inner system is naturally withdrawing energy from what no longer serves your evolution. The hobbies that used to captivate you, the conversations that used to energize you, the dreams that used to drive you, they're not disappearing because you're broken. They're fading because they belong to a version of you that you've outgrown. Most people panic when this happens. They try to force themselves back into old patterns, old relationships, old ways of being. They wonder why the music they loved sounds flat now, why their favorite restaurant tastes like cardboard, why spending time with certain people feels like wearing clothes that no longer fit. But forcing yourself back into what you've outgrown is like trying to squeeze back into your childhood pajamas. It's not comfortable, and it's not meant to be. This phase of losing interest is actually one of the most sacred transitions you'll ever experience. It's your soul's way of creating space. Imagine trying to fill a glass that's already full. Nothing new can enter until you first empty what's there. That's what's happening to you right now. The universe is gently emptying your cup so it can be filled with something that matches who you're becoming. But here's what makes this process so difficult to navigate. We live in a culture that worships consistency. We're told that changing interests means we're flaky, that losing up, that questioning enthusiasm means we're giving our path, means we're weak. So when this natural shedding begins, instead of trusting it, we fight it. We try to resurrect passion for things that no longer align with our frequency. We push ourselves to maintain connections that drain us. We cling to goals that were set by an earlier version of ourselves. The exhaustion you feel isn't from being lazy or unmotivated. It's from trying to animate a life that no longer fits your energy signature. It's like trying to run high-definition software on outdated hardware. Everything feels slow, glitchy, and forced because there's a fundamental mismatch between your expanding consciousness and your current circumstances. Here's something that might surprise you. The most successful people, the most fulfilled individuals, the ones who seem to move through life with effortless alignment, they've all been through this process. They've all had seasons where nothing made sense, where old passions died, where they felt like strangers in their own lives. But instead of panicking, they learned to trust the emptiness. They understood that losing interest in everything isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. When you stop forcing yourself to feel excited about things that no longer resonate, something interesting starts to happen. You create space for your authentic desires to surface, not the desires that were programmed into you by society, by family expectations, or by who you thought you should be, but the quiet, persistent pull towards something that feels true at a cellular level. This might show up as a sudden interest in something completely unexpected. Maybe you find yourself drawn to learning a new language for no logical reason. Maybe you start noticing architecture in a way you never did before. Maybe you feel pulled toward conversations about topics that would have bored you 6 months ago. These aren't random impulses. They're breadcrumbs leading you toward your next evolution. The key is learning to distinguish between depression and transformation. Depression feels heavy, hopeless, and stagnant. It whispers that nothing will ever change, that you're stuck, that there's no point in trying. Transformation, on the other hand, feels spacious. Even when it's uncomfortable, there's an underlying sense of movement, of possibility. It whispers that something is shifting, that change is coming, that this emptiness is temporary and purposeful. Right now, you might be looking at your life and seeing only what's missing, the enthusiasm that's gone, the relationships that feel distant, the goals that seem meaningless. But what if you shifted your perspective? What if instead of focusing on what's leaving, you started noticing what's arriving? The increased sensitivity to energy, the clearer boundaries, the inability to tolerate superficial conversations, the growing need for solitude and reflection. These aren't symptoms of withdrawal from life. They're signs that you're becoming more selective about what deserves your energy. Your system is developing a more refined filter. It's like upgrading from a basic radio that picks up any signal to a sophisticated receiver that only tunes into frequencies that match your current vibration. The people who drain you aren't bad people. They're just operating on a frequency that no longer harmonizes with yours. The activities that bore you aren't worthless activities. They simply don't serve your expansion anymore. The dreams that feel flat aren't necessarily wrong dreams. They might just belong to who you used to be, rather than who you're becoming. This process requires tremendous trust. Trust that your disinterest is guidance, not dysfunction. Trust that your changing preferences are evolution, not instability. Trust that this temporary emptiness is making room for something more aligned with your authentic self. Think about the last time you tried to explain this feeling to someone else. You probably started with something like, "I just don't feel like myself lately," or "Nothing seems to interest me anymore." And they likely responded with well-meaning advice about getting more sleep, exercising, or maybe seeing a therapist. But deep down, you knew this wasn't something that could be fixed with a morning jog or a good night's rest. That's because what you're experiencing isn't a problem to be solved. It's a process to be honored. Your consciousness is literally outgrowing its current container, like a hermit crab that's gotten too large for its shell. You're in that vulnerable space between homes. You've abandoned the old shell because it became cramped and restrictive, but you haven't yet found the new one that fits who you're becoming. This explains why everything feels so strange right now. Your old motivations feel foreign because they were born from a different level of awareness. The person who set those goals, who got excited about those activities, who found meaning in those relationships, they were operating from a completely different understanding of themselves and the world. You haven't lost that person. You've simply expanded beyond them. Consider how your taste in music has changed over the years. The songs that moved you as a teenager might sound simplistic now, not because there's anything wrong with them, but because your emotional palette has become more sophisticated. Your current situation is similar, except instead of just your musical taste evolving, your entire approach to life is undergoing this refinement. The reason this feels so disorienting is that most people experience change gradually. They slowly drift from one interest to another, one relationship to another, one phase of life to another. But you're experiencing what feels like a complete system reset. It's as if someone hit the restart button on your entire existence, and now you're waiting for the new operating system to fully load. During this waiting period, it's natural to feel untethered. Without your usual anchors of interest and enthusiasm, you might feel like you're floating in space. But this floating isn't aimless. It's purposeful. You're being held in this neutral space until your new direction becomes clear. Think of it as the pause between musical movements in a symphony. The silence isn't empty, it's pregnant with potential. Your intuition is probably telling you things that don't make logical sense right now. You might feel called to spend more time alone, even though isolation used to make you restless. You might find yourself drawn to nature, to quiet spaces, to activities that would have seemed boring before. These aren't signs of depression or social withdrawal. They're signs that you're learning to hear the voice of your emerging self. This voice speaks differently than the one you're used to. It doesn't shout demands or create urgent deadlines. It whispers invitations. It suggests rather than insists. It feels like a gentle current rather than a rushing river. Learning to follow this new guidance system requires a different kind of trust than you've needed before. You're probably noticing that the old ways of motivating yourself don't work anymore. The pep talks, the goal-setting exercises, the vision boards, they all feel hollow now. That's because motivation and inspiration operate from different sources. Motivation comes from the mind and willpower. It's about forcing yourself toward outcomes. But inspiration comes from alignment. It's about being pulled toward what resonates with your authentic nature. Right now, you're transitioning from a motivation-based life to an inspiration-based life. This means waiting for the pull rather than creating the push. It means learning to recognize the difference between what you think you should want and what actually calls to you. It means developing patience with the process of becoming rather than rushing toward a predetermined destination. The loneliness you might be feeling isn't just about being physically alone. It's about being the only one who understands what you're going through. The people around you see your changes as concerning or confusing. They might pressure you to get back to normal or snap out of it, but you can't go backward to a version of yourself that no longer exists. That would be like asking a butterfly to crawl back into its cocoon. This is why community becomes so important during this transition, but not just any community. You need people who understand that growth sometimes looks like falling apart, who recognize that losing interest in everything can be a sign of spiritual maturation rather than psychological decline, who can hold space for your uncertainty without trying to fix or rush you through it. If you haven't found these people yet, don't worry. They often appear once you've stopped trying so hard to maintain connections that no longer serve you. When on relationships, you release your grip built around your old identity. You create space for connections that can honor who you're becoming. The timeline for this transition varies for everyone. Some people move through it in weeks, others take months or even years. There's no rushing it because it's not something you do, it's something you allow. It's not about actively creating change, but about surrendering to the change that's already in motion within you. What you can do is create conditions that support this natural unfolding. This might mean saying no to commitments that feel heavy. It might mean spending less time with people who drain your energy. It might mean creating more space for solitude, reflection, and activities that feel nourishing, even if they seem unproductive. Most importantly, you can practice treating this phase as sacred rather than problematic. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you can ask, "What's trying to emerge through me?" Instead of fighting the emptiness, you can honor it as preparation for fullness. Instead of forcing interest in things that no longer resonate, you can trust that your disinterest is making room for something more authentic to arise. Your old life isn't disappearing to punish you. It's dissolving to reveal what was always meant to be underneath. Like an archaeologist carefully brushing away dirt to uncover ancient treasure, this process is removing what was never truly yours to reveal what has always belonged to you. The treasure isn't something you need to create or achieve. It's something you need to remember and reclaim. So if this message found you today, it's because you're ready to stop seeing your disinterest as a problem and start recognizing it as a portal. You're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself beneath all the layers that were never really you. The emptiness isn't permanent, it's preparation. The silence isn't abandonment, it's invitation. And the person you're becoming has been waiting patiently for this exact moment when everything you thought you needed would finally fall away, leaving only what you've always been. Trust the process. Trust the emptiness. Trust that what's meant for you is already on its way.